So anyways, cheers to everybody. And Wilson and Eric, we'll turn it over to you and let you get started in telling us what mechanisms are what and why and when and how.
Yeah, crazy. Well, okay, so we affectionately call this the What the Mech section of our, drinking things. So today we're just going to try to help you guys to see the difference between all these different mechanisms. The mechanism is the part of the chair that really imparts a lot of the action and the adjustments and everything. But given that today this is a what does Tim call it, a drink and think? We want you to balance out the thinking with a good amount of drinking, right? That has to be proportional, like everything in life, good balance.
Is that like a body activated chair?
Yeah.
Nice.
This is,
good segue.
Exactly, right? But so what we're gonna do is Eric and I will kind of chat about some stuff, and you guys, because it's one of those types of afternoons, how about every time we say a certain word, Eric, what do you think? Like we just have them go ahead and get a drink, right? It's like their key word, the trigger.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, what should we use? What should be it?
Well, chair would be mean if we said the word chair. So
Yeah,
maybe we shouldn't use the word chair.
To make Wilson's comments a little more enjoyable.
Yeah, chair. Now I'm funny. Okay, go ahead.
Let's do adjustment.
Okay, I like that. Adjustments or any sort of derivative adjustments. So
There you go.
Adjust, adjustability, adjust.
Tell us when
Don't
to
start yet, guys. Just to be clear, don't start yet. We're just outlining the rules here. Just getting comfortable with the ideas here. All right, so let's do that. One last quick note. For any of y'all who are viewing this from a computer or anything where you can adjust the type of view that you're using, could you please switch to a speaker view? Because there are a couple of things that Eric, Mel, Jordan, and I were the OMers on this end of the camera. We like to do certain unique things with our camera angles. So it'll look a lot better if you use either speaker view or turn off your monitor when I'm talking, you don't see me anymore. Either way, it'll look better.
Don't do that.
Right? You can do it whichever you prefer. All right, so without any further ado, let's dive into this. Should we just start talking about chairs and mechanisms? Oh, maybe not. What we should do probably is let's just take a second and talk about basics. Oh my gosh, there's a whiteboard. Maybe let's play a game of like Pictionary with Eric. Eric, if you guys don't know, is the type of guy who is a total artist, and like we'll be sitting in meetings and he'll draw like the table, because he's that bored, and he'll stick it on a Post-it note and it looks amazing. So we thought
not boredom, just creativity. I mean, I'm not bored in the meetings.
I'm sorry, he's very creative. And so why don't we do this? Okay, let's kind of see if we can think about what is a chair. Let's boil down to the most basic thing first. What is a chair, Eric?
What is a chair? Well, I went on a hike the other day and I saw this rock. And so I went and I sat on it. So that's like a chair, right?
That's not a dinosaur toe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A pterodactyl.
I thought you'd say he was a real artist.
I may have.
That's pretty rocky. Rocky? No?
It's a rocky drawing, all right.
Rocky? No? You don't think so?
Well, you know what? But I get it. A chair.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sit on that.
A chair would be, something that somebody uses to get off their feet, whether it's a caveman or anything. Well, see, that's how you know as an artist, he does it that way.
Pretty good, right? I mean,
yeah, it's a chair, but it kind of looks uncomfortable. I mean, that guy's hunched forward, or girl. Is there anything you can do to make it more comfortable? Maybe
he's gonna want to lean back, so we're gonna put a branch back here for him to lean on.
Oh, okay. So something for them to rest their back on, for their back to rest.
Yeah. Okay. Backrest. Yeah. Right.
We're gonna be adjusting this later if we ever do this again, right? Anyway. Oh. It's like Dora the Explorer. It's like Dora the Explorer, guys. Can you say adjust? All right. Anyway, go ahead.
Cheers.
Pete. That's Pete.
Yeah. So not that good, right? Needs some adjustments. Sorry, I got to say it again. So I don't know, seat height adjustment, seat depth adjustment. Kind of back and forth here, right? Need to have something for multiple body sizes, not just one rock. How about back angle adjustment? How about back tension adjustment? Back height adjustment? Let's do that too. Okay. Did this just get really complicated all of a sudden?
It did, but you know what? It's not, to some extent. I mean, what you're talking about is that a chair is not just a rock, what cavemen would be satisfied with. So if you are presenting chairs to people, whether you're a dealer, whether you're a designer, whether you're inside of the end user and recommending for your fellow workers, what do you want? You want to just have a chair that's going to be able to do a few more things, and more than just a rock and a tree, right? It's more than just simple objects.
We're done with that.
We're done with that. So let's talk about it a little bit. How are we going to figure out what type of mechanism, which is what allows us to have those adjustabilities? What kind of a mechanism we want to select? And Eric, I think
let's break it down to the basics, and let's talk about the ABCs of mechanism selection. How about that?
Sure, I've watched Sound of Music. That's a very good place to start.
All right, here we go. So ABCs. A, what could the A stand for?
It stands for almost everything. No? Esther? Aesthetics. But that's misspelled. This clearly spells with, he started with an E.
Aesthetics, there's an E in there.
Oh.
So aesthetics, right? You come up
Yes.
to the thing, you want to see it visually appealing. You're really going to start here. You want to know, what does it look like? Is it intimidating? Is it not? Is it simple looking? Is there lots of paddles? Is there not? So aesthetics, right?
That makes sense. I mean, if something's too intimidating, people are not going to use it, right? So
Exactly.
there's something to be said about something that looks aesthetically pleasing. Even for some people, they wouldn't want something that's so busy, even if it can help them.
Right, exactly. Now,
Okay.
the next one would be something for the body.
The body, like, what do you mean? What part of the body?
So we talked about seat height.
Okay, that makes sense. Like that rock that we wanted to make it better. We wanted to improve the rock. So we had to have seat height.
Seat depth would be great.
Okay.
And we'll throw it in back height, even though it's not really part of the mechanism, but we'll throw it in anyway.
So something that can support the different sort of anthropomorphics, like the height of your back, the length of your leg, and things that just support your actual body, right?
Right.
I can buy that. But there's a whole lot more to mechanisms than just that, right? So I suppose that's where C is.
True. Now, this is going to be for different sizes of people. Talk about aesthetics, talk about adjusting to the body. Last one we'll talk about is a comfort, maybe a comfort adjustment.
Yeah, like a bucket to catch everything else, basically, right? So we want
exactly.
So what kind of things do you have under comfort? What examples do you have?
You're going to get in the chair, you're going to recline right away. So tilt. What are you going to do with that? Maybe you want to lock it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Maybe you want to adjust tension, tilt tension. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, more on the advanced side, maybe a little more on the intimidating side would be a seat angle adjustment or a back angle adjustment.
Okay. Yeah, those things make sense. That's going to take it to be, it's going to be a little bit user selected. I mean, depends on who it is to some extent, what they like and what they don't want.
True. And so this would be the place to start in a conversation to say, well, what kind of mechanism do you need? You can go through each one, aesthetics, body adjustments, or comfort adjustments.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. So everybody, what we're going to do today is we're going to use this framework, the ABCs of all mechanisms. And we're going to have 5 categories of mechanisms that Eric's going to show us today. And we're going to try to frame each one with the ABCs. And the concept here is that, okay, mechanisms, there's so many of them. What's this? What's that? Okay, that's fine. We'll go into the details. But for you, perhaps what you need to understand the best is when you go into any environment, what kind of things would you want to evaluate in order to select the appropriate mechanism for them? So you might think, hey, does this person care about aesthetics a lot and not so much about their comfort levels and the tilts and all those things? Okay, maybe I just need something that rates highly on the aesthetics, which Eric will show us today. Or maybe somebody's really tall and lanky and they need something to support their body. So then those lead to different mechanisms that you'd want to select for your user, and to be more of a hero for them, you need to select the right thing and not be like a doctor who prescribes the same medicine for everybody, or the caveman who thought a rock was just a chair. That's all they needed, right? So let's be a little bit more expert, and you guys are here to learn. We're perfect. We're here to share. So let's go ahead and jump into that a little bit. And we have the 5 categories of mechanism that we're going to talk about today. And we're going to use specific OM chair models to demonstrate it. But just like when you go to Milan or wherever, you know, if you see like a fashion show, you don't focus on the model, you focus on the clothing, right? The clothing in this case is the mechanism. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to focus on each mechanism category, right, Eric? So why don't you go ahead and start us off? What's the
Perfect.
first one you got for us?
You can see here I have 5 different chairs behind me, and we're going to start here with the first category right here. And what we're going to do is actually, Jordan, come wave at the camera. We have Jordan behind the scenes here. He's going to do a close-up camera so we can get you right up next to the mechanism and we can talk about each one. So Jordan, come on in. We'll get set up. Give us just 1 second to jump in here. Trying to bring you into our showroom here at OM Seating and really talk about the chairs as up close as personal as we can. So this first one is going to be what we call a simple tilt mechanism. Now this mechanism is on a Gini multitasker, but you can see how from an aesthetic standpoint, it's very simple, it's very clean, there's only one lever, it's not intimidating at all. When I jump in the chair, the first thing you're gonna notice is that
shoes.
I have,
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
What's that, my shoes? Is that the first thing you noticed? So when you jump on the chair, the first thing you notice is if I grab the lever, I have a simple height adjustment. So that is going to be your body adjustment. When it comes to maybe a comfort adjustment, there is no other levers or knobs. So this chair really would be great for multiple users, but I have a comfort adjustment kind of automatically by just reclining. I have about 7-8 degrees of recline, simple tilting. In this particular chair, we actually have also a forward angle on that seat as well. You can see that seat angle bent forward as I then perched on the front edge of the seat. I raise the seat up, have a nice perch, can open up the angles of my body for better blood flow, for more comfort as well. And so again, that's that comfort adjustment idea. So we went through aesthetics, went through a simple body adjustment, and then a comfort adjustment. So Wilson, where would you see this chair kind of working?
That's a great question, Eric. And so, it's all about that word in the front, simple. If it's simple, then you clearly are talking about environments where people are not going to sit for a very long period of time. They're just kind of in and out real quick. So it might be something more like a training environment, or not the boardroom, but sort of the small conference room that's up near the front of the offices, so that people who come in like a solicitor and you want to get rid of them, right? So you just look at that and it's really simple. And it's just got that one height adjustment for just that little bit of extra comfort, right? If you also talk about home uses and people who are maybe at home, you would work at the kitchen counter sometime, you go to the couch sometime, you go deal with whatever child emergency there is, kids are yelling at each other. You're a little bit like a nomad within your own home, right? So maybe that desk setup, if you're using your desk kind of occasionally, that might be a great place to set up with a simple tilt as well. And that's pretty much one of the main environments that you would try to find that type of chair in, or that type of mechanism, is anywhere that quick adjustment, very simple articulation is needed, and you don't want to be there for a very long time, and that could work. So let's contrast that with another category of mechanism. And Eric, you want to tell us about the knee tilt?
Yeah, let's jump over to this next category here. So we went through simple tilt as our first category. Our second category is knee tilt. Now you're going to see that aesthetically it's still pretty clean. It's pretty simple, but you still have more paddles here now than you did before. If you can kind of see that underneath this chair. Now this is a single piece shell. It's a full mesh chair. The reason why it's called knee tilt, we're actually just going to start there, is on the simple tilter. The pivot point was right over the middle of the gas lift, right over the center of the chair. And as I'm reclining in that chair, the front edge of the seat is actually coming up off the ground, giving a little bit more pressure underneath the back of my legs, maybe not the most comfortable if it kept reclining. Now, the simple tilter doesn't recline that far, so not too much of a worry over there. But when I sit in this one, you're going to notice that pivot point when I recline is actually towards the front of the chair, or towards the knee, underneath the knee. So I'll go ahead and do that for you. So that is why it's called knee tilt. So you see here, like really where let me lower it down just a little bit. You can see here where it's tilting kind of more towards the front of the chair, which allows me to keep my feet flat on the ground, right? And I don't have a lot of pressure here underneath my legs. So again, that is why it's called knee tilt. Now, some other adjustments that this particular chair has is a tension adjustment. So as I recline, if I need to not recline as fast, I can pull this out. It has like a fishing reel style, and I kind of increase the tension or decrease the tension. And that allows me to adjust that to a particular user or body type. And then on the other side of the chair, this knee tilt has tilt locking. So there's 4 positions. I can lock it upright, and then I can lock it in 2 other middle positions, or I can lock it fully reclined. So it's a very simple mechanism, although it has more features than that simple tilter. And that's why we call it knee tilt with those other features. So Wilson, where do you see a knee tilt mechanism working? What kind of environments do you think this would work in?
So this one I would say is a little bit more of a why than it would be a where per se. You know, so you're talking about the pivoting position where it pivots from the front, so it makes that recline motion pretty comfortable. So whereas the previous mechanism category was for short durations, that's a simple tilt. This knee tilt is pretty good for constant lean backs. So if you think about environments where people are leaning back a lot, not really as fully engaged into their typing or their tasking or their writing quite the same way, what would you think of? So for instance, something like a conference room type of setup. In conference room situations, there's a lot more conversating going on. There's a lot more interaction. So people tend to have more opportunities to sit back into the chair and feel that recline motion. And if that recline motion can be more comfortable and your heels don't come up as much as Eric demonstrated earlier, that might be a good reason to select a knee tilt type of action on your chair. So similarly, when you have somebody who's an executive, it could be that an executive is getting a greater frequency of visitors coming in. So different staff, different people coming in to speak with the executive about whatever ideas that they have, the next great idea, right? So this is a really common setup where executives might just want that sort of simple ease of motion, that really comfortable recline action. And then also the other thing about it is, as Eric talked about earlier, the A of it, the aesthetics, it tends to be a bit more cleaned up in terms of the way it looks. And oftentimes that you'd find that an executive chair would be a more simple looking chair because that's just kind of better for the ego, so to speak, when executives kind of feel like, oh, my chair looks different from the ones that are being used by everybody else, having a whole bunch of paddles and everything on that. So as far as speaking of lots of paddles, that's something we'll also show you as well. That's the type of mechanism that Eric's next going to be introducing to us, something with a lot of adjustments. So Eric, would you please go ahead and show us?
True.
Yes.
I will be saying the word that we need to say more often with this chair.
Yes.
But as a contrast.
Nice job avoiding it there.
Nice. I'm going to now call this one, and third category, multifunction. So this category of chair mechanism here, from an aesthetic standpoint, if we're starting with the ABCs, from an aesthetic standpoint, not the greatest. There's almost like a tree, or sometimes we call it even a forest of paddles here sticking off the side. They all do something very important. It takes a minute to learn what those are, and we can kind of talk about why you'd even want those in the future. But I'm going to show you what they are here first. And now, again, as a contrast to that knee tilt, where it's pivoting in the front, when I sit in this chair and I recline, I just want to kind of start there. When I sit in this chair and I recline, you're going to see that the pivoting action is more in the middle of the chair. You can almost say it's like a center pivot on the chair, right over the gas lift here. It does lift the front edge here, but that's where all these other adjustments come into play to make those adjustments, to lock it back out again, and then find exactly what you need for your body type. This particular chair is called our Discovery Back. You can kind of see the shape of it here. It has a really great ergonomic story. This chair also has multiple seat sizes and back sizes, which work in tandem really well with this style of mechanism. Now, there is an ability to adjust the tension as I was reclining, and it's down here as a knob underneath the chair. But the other thing you can do with this is now have a back angle adjustment. So when I lean this, or I pull this up here, you can see that I can now adjust my back angle. Now, why would you really want to adjust a back angle? And now I'm actually more reclined. One of the great reasons for adjusting a back angle is actually in tandem with adjusting a seat angle. So I'm getting more advanced in those ergonomic features. But if I actually turn this off, I can come forward, and even forward a little more if I rotate this knob. I can come forward, and now I have a forward seat angle. If I lock that out, I now have a really nice open position with a forward seat angle. I'm going to raise it up because I'm a little bit taller here. And this is a really interesting and a comfortable way to return to work if you want to have less pressure in certain areas or maybe a little bit more weight on your feet. This makes it much easier to get in and out of the chair because you're not reclining so far as you sit down. So it's a really great way to kind of set that up for a specific user from a body and a comfort standpoint. Again, maybe not the highest score in aesthetics, but really high in those comfort adjustments. So Wilson, where do you think this type of chair could work and this type of mechanism?
So, I mean, just look at that mechanism for a second here. For those of you who have cameras up, that's a lot of paddles, right? That's a lot of paddles. And when would you ever want to trade off aesthetics that heavily? So this one truly is more of a why question. Like, why would you want that? All right. Well, let's think about this. When we talk about ergonomics, a lot of times we're talking about customizing an object to the person, to the human being, rather than the other way around. You don't want to contort your body to fit your desk, nor do you want to just compromise a lot when you have workers who are returning to work from some sort of injuries or surgeries, hip replacements, knee replacements, carpal tunnel type of repetitive stress situations. If somebody's
knees pressed.
Say that again. For knee rests, is that what you said? Well, there's a lot of different situations where people are just coming back from uncomfortable situations and they need their chair to be able to adjust to them a little bit better. That's where you'd want all these independent paddles and angles. So for somebody also at a desk who's just working a lot intensively, and if they're working intensively, whether they ever had an injury or not, if they want to be able to adapt throughout the day. So let's say that you went to lunch and you had a great big feast, prime rib or something like that, right? You come back from that lunch, you're probably a little bit more sluggish. You're probably not quite the same way as you were in the morning when you are perky from those 10 shots of espresso, whatever it was, right? So that happens for all of us. And when you have a situation like that, you'd like your back angle to open up a bit more because you kind of let your belt out a little bit more, right? You kind of like that angle to work a bit differently for you. And that's where this type of independent adjustability, the multi-function adjustability, that's really going to be, great to have. All right, so that's what a multi-function will allow. And one more thing I'll say as Eric and Jordan are transitioning to the next mechanism, there is something that Eric was showing you about where the seat angle was pitching forward. That's also great for people who have any sort of knee problems. And, you know, if you're thinking about somebody who's getting out of that chair, is it not easier if it's already inclined forward? So that's one of the reasons that exists. The other reason why that independent adjustability exists is so that the back angle can come in even as you pitch forward. For those who like to perch a lot when they're working, that back angle adjustment allows you to still be in contact with your backrest even as you're perching. So there are just a lot of benefits there. But before we talk too much more about adjustments, let's talk about something that's a little bit more simple. And Eric, why don't you tell us about the synchronized mechanism type, which is a very common category of mechanism?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be our example for a synchronized mechanism, or we just abbreviate and say a synchro mechanism. We shorten the word there. So you hear synchro mechanism quite a bit. This is on our Truly chair. Now, the Truly, the Discovery back, they actually both have multiple mechanism types and options that can go on this chair. Just kind of want to throw it out there. But the Synchro is a very popular choice. Now, the reason why it's called Synchro is that when you recline in the chair, you're going to notice that the back actually opens up a little bit faster than the seat reclines. So the seat doesn't recline as much, but the back does recline. So this is a very comfortable, simple use for the recline motion. The back and the seat are synchronous as they move versus the previous chair on the Discovery back, the multifunction, where the back and the seat are in unison, if you will, as I recline. This is going to be synchronized as I recline. Now, this is my favorite mechanism in general because this one in particular has some quick adjustment features. You notice in the other one, if I wanted to adjust the tension, I had to reach underneath and kind of twist a knob. Our tension adjustment on this is just on the side here and actually just clicks through. And there's only 7 click positions. And you can go from a very light tension to a very heavy tension. So it's very quick to adjust for different users. they can find their sweet spot really quickly. And then on the other side here, you can see that we have a similar knob. So aesthetics is pleasing on this chair. Oh, hey, my shoes match the chair, Wilson. Did you notice that?
Yeah. Well, sort of, yeah, it does. It does.
So on this side of the chair here is going to be different from a tilt lock. This is going to be what we call a travel limiter. And what this does is allows you to recline at different angles, but then continue kind of reclining, if you will. You're not locked out in that position. So I'm going to turn the tension back off here, and I'm going to start it fully in the upright position. So I'm fully restricted from reclining. So I have no limit, a zero position, if you will, to recline. If I click back a couple positions here, I can now recline about halfway back, right? This is a really great use of the chair if you want to lighten the tension. Again, quick adjustment if you need to move around, get some more blood flow throughout the day. And then if I click back a little bit further, there's 5 positions. Now I can do a full recline in this particular mechanism. So we really like the idea of a travel limiter on this mechanism. It obviously also has the seat depth adjustment, has the seat height adjustment. We talked about that for those body adjustments earlier. And then our Truly also has a back height adjustment as well, built into what we call our yoke back here. So that's just kind of something that we want to share on this particular chair. Again, it's very popular. This is my favorite mechanism. It's the one I actually sit in every day. I like it a lot in that regard. So Wilson, where would you see a synchro mechanism working really well, and why would you want to select that one?
Okay, so this might be a point where I can just quickly recap for a second. I'll tell you why. So we first started with a simple tilt, right? It's a very simple action. And then we showed you guys a knee tilt, which is still relatively simple. Then we showed them one chair with a whole bunch of paddles all over it, the multi-function. So those are all different types of mechanisms that you find in quick moving environments, conference rooms and such. And then when we got to that orange chair to the left of the camera right now, that multi-function mechanism, it was good for task situations, right? Where people are doing sustained work for several hours a day. Okay, this synchro mechanism, the reason I pause here for a quick recap, a mini recap, is because synchronized mechanisms are a very, very, very common type of mechanism in our industry today. There are lots of synchronized mechanisms. They just have differences in the number of stopping and locking positions that they have, or a difference in the angle of recline for the backrest relative to the seat tilted. Those are just sort of minor differences, but the core concept is that the back and seat are moving in unison, and it's a very common task type of mechanism, a task type of option. So I point that out because Eric asked me, so where do we use this type of mechanism? Pretty much everywhere. You do use it in conference environments, but it's much more focused onto a task environment, like I said earlier. Now, as the chair professionals, you all on this call, you guys need to recommend things to different folks out there, right? And now, how are you going to do that? At some point, you'll find a mechanism that's synchronized, most likely, that you'll feel is very comfortable. And you'll say, that's a great one. I like the way it feels. I don't know quite how to explain it, but I know it's synchronized because the back and seat are moving together, and I feel like it's very comfortable. You can ask whichever chair company that is if they have that same mechanism available on other styles of chairs, because a lot of times we'll use the same mechanisms again and again. In this particular one, what Eric showed us was that our synchronized mechanism in the Truly chair here, it has a set of quick adjustment features, and that really helps you to move rapidly to adjust this chair for different users, essentially. So what I think of for this particular mechanism, since that's the question Eric asked me for this particular chair's mechanism, the quick adjust synchro, I think that's a great mechanism for a large companies with lots of people and for their task workers. Now, large company, because there's a lot of turnover that can happen naturally within the company. And when that happens, you don't necessarily need them to buy a whole new chair. Granted, we would all love that, but that's not always the smart thing to do. In order to save some money, you want a chair that's practically able to transition from one worker to the next worker occupying that same desk or space. So something like this quick adjust synchro will help the person who's working throughout the day make those quick adjustments, those micro adjustments to feel more comfortable before and after lunch, but B, also allow different users within the same company to use that chair for sustained tasking. So this type of chair mechanism, Synchro, is going to be comfortable, really great in terms of the C, really great in terms of the B. The body is going to be well supported because of all the depth and height adjustments that we can make. And relatively speaking, it's going to be decent in the aesthetics, the A category. So that's what I would say about this particular mechanism or this style of mechanism, synchro type mechanisms. Really try to understand if you found one out there that you think is really comfortable, see if you can use that particular mechanism on other styles of chairs. Also see if you want to understand anything more about it. You can always ask Tim or ask us for what the features and benefits of that particular synchronized mechanism is. Now, we're going to show you one last mechanism category, and this is in contrast to all four of the other ones, where we talked about independent adjustments, where we talked about how things were going to be well, adjustable by the user. So now, Eric, would you tell us about this body activated mechanism that you're sitting in front of?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a body activated mechanism. It can also be called a self-weighing mechanism. This chair in particular is called our OM5. Now let's go back to the ABCs. So let's talk about aesthetics for a second. In this particular case, it's very clean and simple. There's only the one paddle that you see here, only one lever that you see on this chair, but it has a very advanced ergonomic function and mechanism that kind of works through the body, works together in unison with your body weight as you sit in the chair. In fact, what you bring to the chair, the weight you bring to the chair, the chair then responds to each individual user in that way. So I'm going to kind of just spin it around for you here just to show you there's no other paddles or levers on this body weight activated mechanism. We like to say body activated mechanism, and we call it BAM. This is our BAM mechanism. But when I sit in the chair here and I go to recline, what you're going to notice is that the seat itself actually drives forward as the back reclines. And what that's doing is it's actually lifting me a little bit up, a little bit forward, kind of going up a little bit of a ramp, and is lifting my own particular weight, and I'm the counterweight for the mechanism here. So there's no adjustments as far as tension. There's no twisting of a knob for adjustment on tension. It should just automatically work for you. Very simple. If multiple users need a chair, this is a really great option for them. This lever is just for seat height adjustment, right? That's it. So again, it's a very simple, clean chair. One last thing I'll say about it is this particular chair has a really great pivot point. It's right here behind the arm, right where the end of this arm, this back frame ends right here. And you'll notice that's right where my hip, the hip of my body opens up. It's the exact same location. So the geometry of my body is working perfectly with the geometry of the chair as I sit and as I recline. In fact, if you sit far into the chair and you sit upright, it holds you. And as you recline, it can actually hold you in multiple positions as it's balanced throughout the ride of the chair. So Wilson, where would you see something really simple like this, but still highly functional? Where would you see this working?
That's a great lead in, actually. Highly functional, but simple. So that's, you think about the environments where there's a lot of user churn, where there's a lot of people coming in and out and in and out. And yet this one chair with no adjustments made to it other than height can accommodate all those users. That would be something like conference rooms. That would be even something like those training rooms I talked about earlier, but maybe something that's a little bit more of an intensive training room. So you want a bit more feature set out of those type of chairs. So like a computer lab or something. And speaking of computer labs also, there are some environments that we found this type of mechanism works really well, especially well in, and that's with technology workers. So if you guys have any customers or users who are maybe in the IT department or any place like that, we've found that those types of users really especially favor this action on this chair where, like Eric mentioned, it's self-weighing. So it helps you to kind of be able to recline and lean back, but balance yourself really well. And apparently a lot of IT people like to sit back and, really lay back as maybe they're so laid back and that's why they literally want to be laid back. Maybe that's what it is. But anyhow, as they're working, they tend to like this type of mechanism as well. Okay, so that's pretty much our summary.
Hey, Wilson,
right?
I think on this chair too, you really got to look at, with this new environment that we're coming back to and having where people aren't assigned spaces and assigned, places to work. This is a phenomenal chair for that, because that way, whoever, if I sit in it, it's going to adapt to me. if Amber's going to sit in, it's going to adapt to her. And we don't have to worry about what mechanism, how to do it, what it is, and everything else. So this is a great chair for that. The last thing I wanted to bring up too is the Truly, which is just on the left of that chair. What you have to think about too, when you're picking out a series of chair for your client, is that these chairs are going to go across the breadth of a company. So do you want the same style going from all the different places that we discussed? And that Truly chair, that has all those different mechanisms inside that series. So it's a great chair to sit there and do across the entire board. It could be a body activated chair, or it could be the simple Synchro-tilt, where you're basically sitting and going in. So
that's a really good point.
One thing I want to do is cheers to you guys. That was a great presentation. Really
Adjustments.
Enjoyed it. Adjustment, yeah. And there was a few times where it was a little tough to keep up.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes,
cheers to you.
Purposely. So the last thing is, if anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, we're going to draw a name and then we'll get with whoever wins to see what chair. And then, oh yeah, the other thing is too is if anybody's going to NeoCon, please make sure you reach out to one of the Tim O'Neill reps. And we're having an OM Seating as one of the sponsors, a huge party at it's a place called Tunnel Vision. It's going to start at 8 o'clock at night on Monday night and go to 1 o'clock in the morning. There is limited tickets, and I mean limited tickets. We can only get 500 people from across the country into this place. And like I said, it is the party to be there. So anyways, with that, we'll have Amber pick a little name and see who's the lucky winner.
All right, the winner of the OM chair, and I'll reach out to you, is Maria Ruggio.
All right, Maria, even though you couldn't drink since you were at work, at least you could party in your chair later on.
Yes.
Congratulations, Maria.
So if nobody has any questions, I thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks, Wilson. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Tim.
Cheers, you guys. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.